sparked one of the most devastating conflicts in history, and how did Vietnam become the center of a global Cold War battle? In today's video, we're diving deep into the fascinating and tumultuous history of the Vietnam War. From colonial rule to revolutionary movements, we'll uncover the pivotal moments and decisions that ignited this infamous conflict. Whether you're a history enthusiast or just curious about world events, this story will leave you captivated. Before we start, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a deep dive like this. Let's get started. The Vietnam War, one of the most devastating and controversial conflicts of the 20th century. But how did it all begin? To truly understand, we must go back to the colonial roots of Vietnam and the complex political tensions that followed. Colonial Vietnam. In the 19th century, Vietnam fell under French colonial rule, subjecting its people to harsh treatment, forced labor, and heavy taxation. These oppressive conditions fueled growing resistance, with nationalist movements increasingly demanding independence. The situation shifted dramatically during World War II when Japan occupied Vietnam, further weakening French control. The power vacuum created by Japan's occupation allowed the Viet Minh, a nationalist organization led by Ho Chi Minh, to rise. Ho Chi Minh fervently advocated for Vietnamese independence and sought to end foreign domination. Under his leadership, the Viet Minh united various factions, combining a nationalist agenda with communist ideals to fight for liberation. This era marked the beginning of a broader revolutionary movement. The struggle for independence, catalyzed by the Viet Minh's rise, would eventually ignite decades of conflict, laying the foundation for the eventual Vietnam War. The First Indochina War. Following Japan's surrender in 1945, Ho Chi Minh seized the opportunity to proclaim Vietnam's independence, drawing inspiration from the U.S. Declaration of Independence to legitimize the nation's sovereignty. Despite this declaration, France was determined to reclaim its colony, leading to the eruption of the First Indochina War in 1946. The war raged for 8 years, with the Viet Minh employing effective guerrilla tactics against the better-equipped French forces. These tactics, combined with widespread support from the Vietnamese population, made the conflict increasingly costly for France. The Viet Minh, led by Ho Chi Minh and military commander Vo Nguyen Giap, weakened French resolve through persistent resistance and strategic offensives. The turning point came in 1954 when the French suffered a catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. This loss forced France to negotiate, culminating in the Geneva Accords. The agreement temporarily divided Vietnam at the 17th parallel, with a communist north under Ho Chi Minh and a non-communist south led by Emperor Bao Dai, setting the stage for future conflict. The rise of Ngo Dinh Diem. In the aftermath of the First Indochina War, the United States aimed to curb the spread of communism in Asia by supporting anti-communist leaders. Their chosen ally in South Vietnam was Ngo Dinh Diem, who rose to power in 1955 following a controversial referendum that ousted Emperor Bao Dai. Backed by American support, Diem established himself as the president of the Republic of Vietnam. Diem's rule, however, was anything but democratic. His government quickly gained a reputation for corruption, as Diem favored family members and loyalists for key positions, turning the administration into a nepotistic network. Political opposition was ruthlessly suppressed, with dissidents imprisoned, tortured, or executed. Diem's policies alienated large portions of the population, particularly the Buddhist majority, as he openly favored South Vietnam's Catholic minority. Buddhist communities faced systemic discrimination, including restrictions on religious practices and unequal treatment in civil service appointments. The tensions culminated in widespread protests, with the Buddhist crisis of 1963 becoming a turning point. Scenes of Buddhist monks self-immolating in public captured global attention, revealing the extent of discontent under Diem's rule. His inability to unify the nation or address mounting grievances set the stage for his eventual downfall in a US-backed coup later that year. The communist threat in the South. In the North, Ho Chi Minh and the communist government remained focused on their goal of unifying Vietnam under communist rule. To achieve this, they began supporting efforts to destabilize the South Vietnamese government, led by Ngo Dinh Diem. A communist insurgency known as the Viet Cong emerged in South Vietnam, carrying out guerrilla attacks against the regime. Their tactics included ambushes, sabotage, and assassinations, aimed at undermining Diem's authority and gaining support among rural communities. To sustain the Viet Cong's operations, the North established the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a critical network of supply routes that passed through neighboring Laos and Cambodia. This trail became the lifeline for the insurgency, allowing the North to transport troops, weapons, and supplies despite the rugged terrain and constant threats from South Vietnamese and US forces. The insurgency and the Ho Chi Minh Trail marked the beginning of an active conflict in South Vietnam. The growing instability alarmed the United States, which viewed the communist movement as a threat to its policy of containment in Southeast Asia. This escalation set the stage for increased US involvement, eventually leading to a full-scale military intervention and the intensification of the Vietnam War. US involvement deepens. In the early 1960s, US involvement deepened as the Cold War rivalry between the US and the Soviet Union intensified. President John F. Kennedy increased the number of American military advisors in South Vietnam to support Diem's government. However, Diem's oppressive policies led to more protests and unrest. In 1963, a coup orchestrated by South Vietnamese generals with tacit US approval overthrew and assassinated Diem. This left South Vietnam politically unstable, further complicating the situation. The Gulf of Tonkin Incident. A pivotal moment in the Vietnam War was the Gulf of Tonkin Incident in 1964. Two U.S. Navy ships, the USS Maddox and USS Turner Joy, reported attacks by North Vietnamese forces in the Gulf of Tonkin. While the exact details of these encounters remain controversial, the incident was portrayed as unprovoked aggression by the North. President Lyndon B. Johnson seized the opportunity to push for the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, which Congress swiftly passed. This resolution granted the president broad authority to use military force in Vietnam without a formal declaration of war. The incident and subsequent resolution marked the official escalation of U.S. involvement in Vietnam, leading to a massive deployment of American troops and resources that would define the conflict for years to come, the start of full-scale war. By 1965, the United States had escalated its involvement in the Vietnam War, transitioning from advisory and logistical support to full-scale military operations. The U.S. deployed thousands of ground troops, marking the beginning of a major American combat presence in Vietnam. At the same time, the U.S. launched extensive bombing campaigns, including Operation Rolling Thunder, targeting North Vietnamese supply lines and infrastructure. Initially, the war was seen as part of the broader Cold War struggle to contain communism. However, the conflict quickly escalated, drawing both sides into a protracted and devastating struggle. What began as a political maneuver to stop the spread of communism evolved into a long and costly war, with devastating consequences for both Vietnam and the United States, setting the stage for one of the most contentious and divisive conflicts in modern history. Reflecting on the war's origins, the Vietnam War's origins are deeply rooted in years of colonial oppression, ideological conflict, and global political rivalry. It was a pivotal conflict that not only reshaped Vietnam, but also had profound impacts on the United States and the world. The war spanned decades of resistance to foreign rule, with both nationalism and communism playing central roles. Its consequences were devastating, claiming millions of lives and leaving lasting scars on those involved. Exploring the war's beginnings helps us understand its complexity and the historical lessons it offers for the present and future. As we've seen, the Vietnam War wasn't just a conflict between two nations. It was a culmination of years of colonialism, ideology, and global power struggles. The impact of its origins echoes through history, reminding us of the complexities behind every war. If you found this exploration of the Vietnam War insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into history's most pivotal moments.